You know the way they give you a newspaper often when you get on a plane? Well, I grabbed one yesterday when I was getting on the plane at Gatwick, heading off on holiday, and there was a story in there that I spotted. It was the New York Times, but I'll talk about that in just a second. First of all, welcome back to the Public Relations Podcast. I told you that I was going away on holiday. I'm quite literally sitting right now on a balcony in Sardinia, which is part of Italy. It's one of the islands of Italy, if you're not familiar with this part of the world. And I'm looking out at a beautiful bay. It's azure waters, crystal clear waters, lovely and warm. There's lots of sailing boats and cruise boats, sort of little cruisers all around the area. It is absolutely beautiful and so warm. But anyway, enough of that. I'm not going to do a sort of full in-depth episode this week, but I'm still always looking around for PR ideas and things that I can share. So let me just start off, first of all, by saying that I couldn't help but have a look at some of the PR companies who are operating in Sardinia. And not surprisingly, many of those are tourism related. No surprise at all, obviously. And one of the things that you see that comes up quite often with those sites is that they talk about fam trips. Now, if you're not familiar with the tourist industry, I actually used to work in it many years ago, they're familiarization trips. They're basically about taking influencers, bloggers, or journalists, or anyone who's in the travel space to hotels and on experiences in the hope that they're going to write about the stuff and give a really good positive spin to it. So it's a pretty common thing that's going on. And it's no different really to organizing press trips. You know, for example, when I used to work in politics, there was an example when I was working for the European Parliament, and we took a bunch of journalists from the United Kingdom to Brussels to meet up with a football team, a soccer team, who were helping to stop young people being radicalized at the time. And so we actually organized a bus trip and we got all these journalists on board, and I had to coordinate a whole bunch of that as well. So it's all very similar in what's going on. And the first thing that I would say is you've got to make sure that these journalists are going to be getting, or these influencers are going to be getting what they need. Now, this doesn't matter whether you're doing this kind of press trip for some government organization or for some small charity or even for doing something for your own business. If you've got someone that needs photographs, they need photographs. If you've got someone that needs audio, they need audio. And you've got to make it as easy as possible for them to get it if you want them to give you a good review. So, for example, if it comes to audio, let's say you've got someone that's doing a podcast and isn't so worried about images. Well, and equally with video as well, is that if you've got someone to interview for them, then don't just do some kind of press pull where they have to use the audio that everyone else gets to use. Give them a one-on-one opportunity. And the reason is because journalists love that opportunity to talk directly to people. You know, it's nice to be able to ask your own questions. You look at, for example, if you look at all the movie junkets for films, right? You see the actors who are sick to death. You can tell when you watch them because they're being asked the same questions all day long. But the point is, journalists like that one-on-one time. So you may not be dealing with movie stars. You may be just doing some small volunteer who's doing an interview with some press. Then whatever happens, you want to be doing that one-on-one opportunity to encourage them to get more excited about it. The same thing as well with familiarization trips. You know, if you were in the tourist industry, then one of the worst things that they ever did was they would take us to, say, I don't know, 8, 9 hotels in the morning, and all hotels are fairly similar at the end of the day. But what really stood out was when they took us to this. I remember in Norway, they took us to a hotel which had an incredible buffet, absolutely incredible buffet of all the different meats over there that they had in Norway and all different fruits and stuff like this. And then they took us off snowboarding, and it was a lavish experience. And as a result, that was what you remembered. I wasn't in PR at the time. I was doing ski sales, and I became the top seller of Norwegian holidays as a result of that. And it wasn't anything deliberate. It was just the fact that that stuck in my mind. And that's exactly the same effect that we want to be happening with journalists as well. So that's for me. Oh, one other thing I should mention about fam trips or about press trips is, let's face it, journalists, and I remember because, you know, I've been on both sides of this. I've been a journalist and I've been organizing press trips. Journalists generally have this kind of, rightly or wrong, I have this attitude that they're doing you a favor. So you've got to treat them really, really well. Because if you don't pay attention to the details, there's a chance that something totally unconnected with the story you're covering, you know, even if like they have travel problems or something like that, could actually lead to a bad overall experience and bad overall review for them. So you've got to organize these things like they're not just journalists, but they're like having the king or queen joining you, are really serious VIPs. You've got to view them that way. Now, I mentioned the New York Times at the start, and the fact I picked this up when I got on the plane yesterday as I was heading out to Sardinia. And it was really interesting because there was a story on the front page, which at first sounds completely irrelevant, but it struck me because of the way, once again, you can tie news stories into what you're doing. And the story was about a shortage of Dijon mustard in France. Now, initially, that might sound like, well, what's this got to do with me? It's the principle that I really want to get across here. It's about tying yourself into stories that are already out there. You've got an issue here, which clearly isn't a one-day issue. When you start reading into the story on the front of the New York Times, you can see that this is an ongoing problem with supply chains and about the war in Ukraine and things like this, all adding up. But the point is that if you're involved in, obviously, catering, you can immediately putting a story out there. You can certainly be talking about it on social media, but you could be putting a story out there to national media, to even local media, to industry press, and getting yourself as part of that conversation. If you're using Dijon mustard, if you're in your dishes or you know a little bit about it. But it's not just about the catering industry. Think about it from a logistics point of view. If you're involved in any kind of logistics industry, and there's plenty of different options on there, or supply chain management or some kind of supply chain thing, you can be talking about the kind of issues that are faced by industries. And again, if you're a haulage company, there's no reason you can't go to a catering magazine and talk to them about haulage and logistics. It's about finding that hook and about getting that word out there. And maybe by appearing in that catering magazine, you're going to get a bunch of catering industries who are going to hear about you and start using your services as well. That's just a couple of things I've noticed for the moment. As I say, I'm on holiday, so I'm not doing anything special this week, but I really wanted to get some sort of episode out because it is very hard to focus with the view in front of me right now. I will put a picture of this, of exactly where I'm sitting with my laptop in front of me. I'll put it on social media, on Twitter, at that PR chap, if you want to see that. And I'll put a picture in the newsletter, which I will try to get out in the next couple of weeks as well, with a roundup of what I've got in here. And as always, if you're listening to this show for the very first time, it's a little bit different this week because I'm on holiday, as I say, but you will find all the details for the newsletter and everything else at thepublicrelationspodcast.com. That's thepublicrelationspodcast.com. I'll speak to you real soon, unless I see something before that I really want to share with you. And also, let me know what you think as well. Oh, I should say one other final thing, actually. Thanks so much for all the feedback about the website for the Public Relations Podcast. Yes, things are going to happen. Now that I think I've got the format right for the show, that's the next thing I really want to focus on, is getting the website looking better and getting this all a lot clearer. Makes PR sense, of course. Absolutely. Right. I'll speak to you later in the week or next week.